We've got Tara McKenna coming down to the basement today. She runs a website called the Zero Waste Collective, and her goal is to be less trashy. Let's see if we can clean up the trash in our life. She's not only a fantastic blogger, but has a book called Don't Be Trashy, which is a simple 12-step guide. And man, flipping through this, there are so many ideas of easy things that you can do to clean up your life. And when you have less trash sitting around, you can be more focused on stacking Benjamin. And here she is, the queen of all things not trashy. Tara McKenna's here. How are you?
I'm good, Joe. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm so happy that you're here. And it doesn't surprise me that you travel light, by the way. That is not a shock. Like, you don't come with 16 suitcases and all kinds of 85 changes of clothes and all that stuff.
Just a backpack and a whole bunch of reusables.
Is that, by the way, I have a friend who loves traveling as light as he can. And by the way, this has nothing to do with just being trashy. He just enjoys the challenge of traveling with less. And we'll talk about the challenge of even living with less, right? But are you that type of traveler now? You found the perfect like polyester blend hiking pants and the shirt that you can rewear 14 times?
Is it embarrassing to say no, that I don't travel as light as I should? My husband makes fun of me. I'm like the minimalist who doesn't pack light because I need to be ready for anything and everything in the moment. But the thing is, with this lifestyle, I have been converting to more of like finding items that I can use for multiple different things. So it's getting lighter, Joe. It's getting lighter.
Yeah, but still, I love that answer because of the fact, and you make this clear in your book, when you talk about zero waste, like zero waste in your life is a goal, but let's be clear, there are steps along the way, and it's okay to get 30% there, 50% there, 70% there. This is a journey.
It 100% is a journey. And I'll tell you, when I started the journey, I went all in. Like, I was really hardcore at the start. And I got to a point where my husband was hiding chips on me. Like he would put them in cupboards that don't store food. And then behind the passenger seat of his car, I would find packages of cookies. Seriously, I think it went too far. We reached a tipping point where zero waste was too zero waste for us, even though it's technically impossible to be zero waste in our society. But for me, I was like, all the reusables, go to the store with our own containers and no packaging comes home. And I think that became too much for my husband, who needed cookies and chips. And so I've come to a place now where I'm like, okay, we don't have to be that hardcore.
But getting there by itself is a journey. And this is what attracted me to your project, the blog, and to your book, is the fact that you never in any of your writing come across as this person who has always been this hardcore. I wear the same clothing every day and I just eat red beans and that's it. And I have one package for my stuff. Like, you're a regular person. Let's talk about the beginning of this journey, because you cover this in the preface of your book. And I guess it's a wonderful place to start. So you were going to a wedding. You were going to your dad's wedding. Tell us that story.
Yeah. So my dad lives in Indonesia, and he got married in Jakarta, Indonesia. And, we were meeting his new family, and we decided that we would all go to Bali as a family.
Oh,
so
that would suck. That'd be horrible.
It was awful, no, especially coming from a place that's a bit colder in terms of climate. Anyways, so we went to Bali, and I envisioned it to be a pristine destination. And don't get me wrong, it is phenomenally beautiful. Have you ever been?
I haven't. We were going to go, and then this weird thing happened in 2020.
No.
We had a place rented for a month, Tara. I was so excited to go. Yeah. And then this little pandemic happened.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, it should still be on your list.
That's okay. Put salt in the wound. Tell me how awesome it was.
It's so amazing. Okay. So the palm trees and the sand and the sun, and it was so beautiful. But then, as soon as I went into the water with my snorkel and mask, I just saw so much trash intermingling with the fish and the coral. And as someone who's like a nature enthusiast, I was absolutely devastated. It made me really, really sad. And, you start to feel really small in that moment. Like, you're just surrounded by garbage essentially. And you're like, well, what can I do? And it's not like in that moment I made the direct connection between my lifestyle and the trash I was seeing. I'm like, this was somebody else's problem in that moment in my mind, right? Not like the Snickers bar I ate last week or whatever, it just didn't connect to me, my lifestyle. But eventually it came, to me a few years later when I started to discover this like lifestyle of zero waste living. And I was like, ding, ding, ding. Why didn't I even think about this? We live in a very convenience-based society where, we eat and buy things and toss so much on a regular basis. So that connection is now like really clear.
But there's two steps along that journey that I don't want to leave out because I think these are fantastic steps. The number one was, you said earlier that you went all in. You went all in that week. It sounds like you became that annoying family member that's all you wanted to talk about the whole time you're with your family. Like, this waste thing sucks. Like, anybody see this waste stuff? Like, we shouldn't be this person. You became that person for a little while.
I definitely was that person. And I'm sure they wanted to turn the off button. Like, can we shut her off? Like, stop being Debbie Downer on our vacation, which is true. Like, I definitely enjoyed our vacation, but, I came home and couldn't help but think about that issue. And it just really has stayed with me ever since.
Well, and the other thing that I don't want to let go of, because when it comes to life changes and life direction changes, it always seems like those happen around big events in our life. And these big events hit us all different ways. Some people curl up in a ball and stop doing anything. Some people become a missionary. Some people, just all over the place. You get this call. It sounds like it was in the middle of the night in Canada, and a friend of yours was trying to get a hold of you.
Yeah, this is a hard one for me to go through and revisit this conversation. But yes, I got extremely bad news when we were on that trip to Bali because my best friend, we were a little trio, actually. There was three of us. So my one best friend was trying to get a hold of me, and my husband and I, we, had finished hanging out with my family, and we were going to do our own trip. We had trips around other islands, and then we were going to go to Thailand and a whole bunch of other places. But in the middle of the night here and evening in Indonesia, I get this phone call, and I'm like, why are people trying to get a hold of me? I'm on vacation. I don't want to, be on my phone or whatever. And my friend says to me, she's like, you need to sit down. You need to sit down for this. And I was like, oh, that can't be good. Something must be going on in her family or something. And our other best friend had passed away tragically in a car accident. So it was a very, very hard time in my life. And so when, we came home immediately, like as soon as, we were about to go on the rest of our trip, we ended up taking a flight home. So that, it took a long time for me to really get out of a place of grief. But when I did, it gave me an extra motivation to be like, okay, well, I'm here. I'm here and I would like to make a difference. So what can I do? And it made the direct connection back to Bali, to that moment I had seeing all that trash. I'm like, you know what? I want to make the world a better place. How can I do that? And so the zero waste lifestyle, the experience that I had, all kind of came together, and I decided to create a blog. And I was working full time at the time. I don't anymore. I'm into my business full time now, but I started a blog and it grew from there. So I really love the opportunity to share this message with other people that we can live lighter on this planet and live better, but in a way that isn't burdensome. Like, it was a bit of a burden when I started because obviously my husband was hiding chips on me, and it doesn't have to be that way.
So you start with the blog, and I kind of feel like as I'm reading your words that this is more, I mean, obviously it's very personal. And the blog might have been a way, and I don't want to put words into your mouth, of kind of holding yourself accountable to this new lifestyle. And you make this statement that I really like. You talk about the role of government here, and that certainly governments can do more, and there are laws that we can pass. And you talk about Greta Thunberg and others, but you have a statement about government involvement. Like, have you seen how long it takes just to get your license plates done?
Yeah.
Like, why wait for a government? Like, you're not going to wait for a government. You're going to go do things yourself.
Yes. And I I really want to reiterate, we cannot let governments off the hook. Big corporations and governments, those, entities have a huge responsibility and they can impact huge change. But that doesn't mean that we get to sit around doing nothing, in my opinion. I think we have the opportunity to take ownership over our own lives and to make a difference in our life, in our, within our families, our communities, and amongst our coworkers, and not in a way that's like the plastic police, like I was when I first started this journey. I think I was so keen on it, and I was probably a little too obsessed with it, but I think that's the journey that I needed to take at that time. But we can take ownership of our lives. And what I like about the zero waste lifestyle movement is it gives you the chance to kind of assess your life. You're like, what am I consuming? And actually, I do talk about doing a trash audit. It might not be everybody's cup of tea to examine their trash for like a month, but it's a really great way to to learn what type of waste you're consuming, right? What are you buying or consuming, and what are you throwing out? And North Americans are sending about 4.5 pounds of trash to the landfills like per day, and North Americans are huge consumers in that way.
Well, I don't know if you heard when you were upstairs, but Doug's trivia question today leading into this, the average American, 1,600 pounds of trash a year. Like North America, the U.S. leads the world in trash per person, not in trash. I mean, it's a huge country in trash per person, which means all of us are a piece of it. But I want to get back to that trash audit, because I want to give people at the end of today some tips and things that they can do to start off on this journey themselves. But I want to talk a little bit about the stakes in this journey, because you found so many things changed for you. And I just want to go over these just briefly. Tell me how these changed for you. You said you were eating healthier. How does being less trashy help you eat healthier?
A lot of food that is less packaged tends to be less processed as well. So a lot of packaged foods, you'll find, you can't pronounce some of the ingredients, and there's probably a reason for that. Who knows what factory that was made in, right? So when you're eating a banana, what's in a banana? It's a banana. So
100% banana.
Definitely advertisement, 100% banana. So when I started to reduce the amount of packaging that came home with me, I was eating far better because a lot of it was whole foods. So that's why I was eating healthier, just because it was far less packaged.
So your issue with your husband and cookies was not really the cookie. It was the packaging around the cookie. Yes. Like, Chips Ahoy come in that plastic insert, right? That's just going to go in a landfill somewhere. I got it. I'm like, how do cookies, man, that is hardcore.
No, he's allowed cookies. I never said he couldn't have cookies. In fact, I didn't even tell him he couldn't buy packaged cookies. I was not the plastic police, I promise. The next few, I think, go together: meeting new people, making new friends, getting involved in my community. Tell me about that. Yeah. So when I first started, I was going to a lot of events. Obviously, the last couple of years have changed that a little bit, but this was a number of years ago that this started. So I was going to conferences, networking events, meeting people through Instagram and other social media, and meeting them in real life because we had a lot in common. And so my network grew, and it was really, really cool. And I'm still in touch with and friends with a lot of those people today. And I look forward to when a lot of those events can come back. And I was actually talking to one of my friends online last night and being like, I really miss our conferences. So yeah. And plus also you can get involved with, your municipal government if you want to. So I do sit on a liaison committee with our waste management facility in the city that I live in. So, there's a lot of different ways to get involved and meet new people.
I find that when you get involved with like-minded people, I'm thinking about, I went to a camp this year. I spoke at a camp called Camp Phi, which many of our listeners will know, which is Camp Financial Independence. These people go camping and they talk about becoming financially independent. And it sounds like the most boring thing on earth to a non-money geek, but it is so fun because you're not really talking about money. You're talking about values. And I imagine in the zero waste community, it's the same thing. You talk about these shared values that you have.
100%. And this is really relatable because with the low waste or zero waste lifestyle, you actually save a lot of money unless you're going to buy a bunch of new sustainable stuff, which, sure, if you want to, go for it. But otherwise, you would be saving a lot of money because you're technically consuming less than you would otherwise, because we live in a very consumer-driven culture.
But and I want to dive into that, the consumer-driven culture, because you write about where this all began, about how we got here. Take us back a little bit through history. How did we get to the point where I open up a package from Amazon, I grab the stuff inside of it, I chuck this huge amount of packaging that it came in, and it goes to a landfill? How did we get here?
Wow. Yeah. So, in a nutshell, the 1900s were really a game changer. We're coming out of this era of like industrialization and then the shift towards, our technological society, right? So now we're online, we have the internet, we came out of industrialization. So we were able to mass produce and ship products so quickly, right? We have goods going across the world. We order something online, we get it tomorrow. It's completely different than it was 100 years ago. But not only that, we were sold a lifestyle of consumption. So not only was it all of these things happening, marketing really picked up in the mid 1900s as well. And with that, we were sold like this idea that we needed to buy an amazing lifestyle, where it's not about, reusing what we inherited from our grandparents. It's like, well, we can go buy something brand new for $100, $50, $10, and we don't need to inherit that because we can get something brand new instead. And because we're on this like hedonic treadmill of like, I want this next best thing and I can get it tomorrow and I can buy it with my credit card, we can have all of the stuff we ever wanted and have a lot of debt with it too.
Yeah, right. It is so funny how this cleans up the budget, cleans up the debt, and cleans up your house at the same time. Yes. You talk about how in your house, something that was, I don't know, it sounded like it might've been surprising at first, like how much clearer your mind was just because you didn't have all this clutter laying around.
Exactly. So decluttering was a bit of a part of the process for me, and it gave me a chance to sell items that were sitting around collecting dust that I didn't personally, use anymore. But the nice thing is if I sell it online, someone else can buy it and enjoy it. So one thing that eventually started collecting dust were my rollerblades, and I enjoyed my rollerblades for so long. But then one day I stopped using them and I did other activities, and then they just sat in my closet. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, where something they stop using just sits in a closet or in a cupboard or on the floor. I don't know. It just sits there and doesn't do anything. So this is a good opportunity to take a new lens at your home and be like, do I need all of this stuff? And then on top of that, when you are decluttering, to analyze your consumption patterns. Like, that sounds really boring. How can I say that in a more exciting way? I'm not sure. Like, that sounds so boring, but you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
If you have a doll collection, it's like, do you need to keep collecting dolls? Because you're spending a lot of money on it and it's taking up space in your home. You're essentially paying rent for these dolls or whatever it is you collect, for example.
We had a Department 56 collection, which I don't know if you're familiar with these little ceramic houses and stuff. And we had so many of them at the point that half of them because we bring them out for the holidays, every holiday season, half of them would still stay in the closet. And we ended up getting rid of all of them. And while I miss it a little bit, I realized I can go to a store and I can see the display without having to buy it and have it in my own house. And it actually is kind of more fun to see it once in a while than have it sitting in my closet and I've got to take it out, set it up and make it more pretty. Decluttering is a big part of your first chapter. And even though you don't start there and your second chapter, since you went there already, let's dive into decluttering. Are there rooms that I should start with decluttering? Like you talk about having a storage, having a storage locker. And a lot of people do. I mean, tons of people, these storage facilities, there's a new one going up here in Texarkana right now. So more and more people have so much stuff, Tara, that they're throwing it in this storage place where they forget about it for years. Do we clean out the storage locker first? Do we start with the attic or do we start with the things that we see? Where do we begin?
You know, my first thought about when you say that is that I should really own a storage company because they must be making so much money for all of our clutter. You know what I mean? That business is absolutely booming. So
this actually sounds like a conversation we had in the mid-90s. A financial planner friend of mine and we were talking about people were eating worse and they were getting fatter, right? And I said, this is going to be, Tara, this is going to be the next craze, like this running craze that was becoming big in the 90s is going to become a physical fitness craze. And I'm going to invest in physical education and physical equipment that helps people. And my friend Julie said, I'm investing in diabetes meds. Because nobody's going to fix it. We're all just going to keep getting fatter. And guess who, even though we've had the Peloton and all kinds of fun stuff, I think she won. So yeah, maybe just invest in storage lockers.
Yeah, exactly. So where to start? I mean, it depends on your personal preferences and what you tend to collect. For me, I started with my closet because when my husband and I moved in together after we got married, we, had a Century home and it had the tiniest closets. Like, today our closet standards are like walk-in closet, right? Everyone dreams of having, well, maybe not everybody, but, we dream of having a lot of space for all of the things that we own. And this house that we moved into was over 100 years old and people did not have that many clothes. They had an average of like 7 to 9 outfits. Meanwhile, we're buying a piece of clothing, every other day. So I started with my closet because when I emptied my storage locker that I had nowhere to put all of my clothes. So I had no choice but either to have a mountain of clothes on my bed, in addition to in my closet and in my drawers. Like I don't even know how I accumulated so many clothes. I was obviously trying to keep up with the Joneses. So I decided that I would declutter, and that's where I started. And that's actually where I went down the minimalism rabbit hole years ago and discovered, the likes of Joshua Becker and his blog Becoming Minimalist, which I really enjoy. I read it, diligently. So I'm still trying to make sure I don't overflow with clothes once again, even though I'm on this, low waist lifestyle. I still have to keep it in check. So it's finding the things in your home that drive you a little crazy or maybe stress you out, or maybe you're stumbling over things. I would start there.
When it comes to clothes and closets, do you do the Marie Kondo thing? If it sparks joy, keep it. If it doesn't spark joy, get rid of it? Or does it matter?
The way I look at it is own things that reflect your current season of life. So what does that mean? It means, I held on to a pair of shorts that didn't fit for 5 years. So I eventually was like, I need to get rid of these shorts because every time I look at these shorts, I'm reminded that I need to lose 5 pounds. And so it didn't reflect my current season of life. I wasn't taking that 5-pound loss too seriously. So I got rid of the shorts. So that's the way I recommend it, is think about what you do right now. And if, for example, the rollerblades they were not my season of life anymore. I was no longer a rollerblader. That's not how I wanted to spend my time. So it was time to declutter the item. So when you go through your closet of clothes, make sure it reflects the activities that you do, what you do during your day, and what you want to do. Well, this is a really tough time because we're going through this pandemic. Are we allowed to say that on this show? Talk about the pandemic.
We're going through the pandemic.
I'm like,
hey, should we say #spoiler first?
Most people are, probably wearing comfier clothes than usual. So it's a very comfy season of life. And that certainly reflects my lifestyle right now. I don't really need blazers, but I really need some yoga pants. So that's just the way it is for me right now. But anyways, the point is, look at your items and think, is this reflecting what makes sense for me right now?
You talk about how most of us, when we were younger, we learned the 3 R's, and you say it's time to relearn the 3 R's.
100%. So reduce, reuse, recycle. Did you grow up with that too then?
Absolutely. And what's funny? If we're going to focus on one of these with a little bit of time we have left, I want to go into reuse, because you make this great list of things that we can reuse that just I think we need to be reminded of this one thing, because you point out a few obvious wins, like water bottles, coffee cups, straws. Those are easy wins. Cheryl, my spouse, carries a reusable straw everywhere she goes. And what's funny is you never realize how many times people offer you a straw.
Oh,
like
yeah.
we get offered straws everywhere, and they're always surprised when she's like, no, I brought my own.
That's great. That's wonderful that she does that.
That's just one little thing, but still.
It makes a difference. And I do think, and I call it a zero waste kit. So basically the things that you're going to use throughout your day, whether it's a reusable bag or, one big culprit is, when you're grocery shopping and you're going through the produce section, it's really easy to get a lot of those plastic disposable produce bags. So if you bring the reusable version, then you don't even have to bring all of that trash home that you'll eventually just throw out anyway. So I like keeping those in my zero waste kit too, but also utensils. It's surprising how many times you'll be out and you'll be like, oh, I really need a bite to eat. And if you keep an extra set of utensils with you in your bag, it doesn't even have to take up a lot of space. So, yeah.
What about you talk about napkins, handkerchiefs, those things?
Yes, and actually, I'm embarrassed because I was getting a bit of a runny nose, and I've got my hanky here. So
there it is.
So yes, we don't buy tissues anymore. We use hankies.
But you say to add on 5 more. And before I get to that, another piece of advice that I like that you have: trade with other people. Like if you're done with those rollerblades, maybe trade them for something that you will use with somebody else.
Yes, and this is becoming a lot more popular, but have you heard of Buy Nothing groups?
Yes.
So there are so many ways, and Buy Nothing group is a really great movement where you can swap with other people. So you can either swap with people that so you could like host an event where, say you decluttered the clothes in your closet and you happen to be relatively the same size to your friends. You can have a party and just swap clothes and then decide, what you want to do with the rest, whether you want to sell it or donate it. But Buy Nothing groups are a really great way to, offload your stuff online, but also to find things that you need that you don't even have to spend money on. If someone's getting rid of an instant pot or something, and you're like, oh, I really need an instant pot. And you go on your group and someone's like, oh, I really want to get rid of my instant pot. And then there you go. You've got a free instant pot. It's really great.
That's fantastic. You add on 5 more to the 3 R's. You say there's 5 more that we need. And just give me 1 or 2 sentences on each of these, if you don't mind, Tara. Rot.
Yeah. So actually, I have to I have my notes here because I am so bad because I'll say the same thing twice. I'll be like, did I say reuse or repair? Anyway, so
yes.
In addition to reduce, reuse, and recycle, we've got refuse, rot, repair, repurpose, and rethink. So I want to highlight rot really quickly because that essentially means to compost, right? So a huge part of the waste that we create in our homes is organic waste. And when it goes to landfills, it creates a really toxic greenhouse gas called methane. So one way that we can significantly reduce our waste without doing too much, to reduce it is simply to just compost. So whether or not your municipality has compost facilities, you can do this at home using things like worm bins. There's so many different home compost recycling systems. It's a simple way to reduce your waste. But I really like some of these other ones, like repairing. We've become a culture where planned obsolescence is a thing, and essentially it became really popular in the 1900s to create stuff that wasn't built to last. So we see that in so many things that break these days. Something like as simple as a toaster or any other kitchen appliance where you're like, oh, I only just bought that last year and it's already broken. So I really advocate for buying things that were built to last or have good warranties, or that they're repairable, so you don't have to go out and buy another one next week because it wasn't built to last from the start.
Funny. Yeah, it's funny. We had that with a can opener. We bought an electric can opener, and it immediately just the engine was, and you'd have to keep resetting it. You know what I did? I got rid of the electric can opener and went back to the hand crank, because the hand crank I can use forever. That thing will never go bad. I think I think my parents maybe inherited their hand crank from my grandparents.
Exactly. It's kind of just about going back to basics, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Where do I need the innovation and where don't I? This, by the way, is maybe a third of what's in the first chapter of your book. And what's cool is you kind of push people to go on a Don't Be Trashy challenge with your book. Talk a little bit about the challenge, because Cheryl and I, my spouse and I, went for a walk this morning before we started our day. And we were talking about how we're going to do this challenge, Tara. I think this is going to be super fun. Yeah, absolutely. It's fun. It's rewarding. You feel good. You say early in the book, you're like, I feel like a badass, and you can too. when you're bringing your own straw places. I thought it was funny. I laughed, but talk about the challenge.
Okay. So my book, available in the United States, Don't Be Trashy by Tara McKenna.
Yeah, and by the way, for those of you not on YouTube, just imagine a pretty good-looking cover of a book. There you go.
Oh, it's beautiful. We've reused some bottles. They've got flowers in them. Gorgeous cover. So the book is basically outlined in like 12 different chapters, and each chapter focuses on a different element of ways to reduce your waste. So we've talked about a few of them already, just kind of the basics of like reduce, reuse, recycle, and some other things you can do. And then also moving towards decluttering and minimalism. So it's one thing to declutter, but you also need to consider what's coming into your life, because if you declutter and then buy a bunch of whole new stuff, then you're just going to reclutter, still consume, and still waste. So, and then we talk about other elements in this book, ranging from like, swaps in your bathroom, like how you can reduce waste. So, a lot of people really collect a lot of toiletries, like how many deodorants or, items of makeup do we need? I don't know if you've ever looked under your cupboard and been like, whoa, I'm going to close that cupboard because I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, your bathroom, your kitchen, I go through, how to grocery shop with a new lens. But it's not about being perfect, of course. And then also detoxifying your whole home, because indoor air pollution is a huge thing these days from the different products that we buy and chemicals that we're using in our home. So I really cover the gamut, but also I talk about things like how to just navigate this new world with your friends, your family. And then the world is also just trying to give you a bunch of stuff. So how can you refuse that stuff, but not in a rude way, right? Setting it up for conversations where, like at Christmas time, for example, or whatever holiday you celebrate where there's gift giving involved, how can you set it up so you don't get a bunch of stuff that you don't want? Because that adds clutter, it creates waste, and it's kind of awkward because you're like, do I keep that? What do I do with that? Thank you. I don't know. So I address all these things, and it's a great way to start the year, because it's, you could take it month by month if you wanted to and address each topic on a month by month basis.
That's what we thought. 4 weeks is a good time to at least get ourselves acclimated to the topic in each chapter. And we've got enough time to go through it and maybe peel off a little bit at a time and make sure that we implement as much as we possibly can. Because it's not just about reading it, it's about doing it. And what's neat is I just love this idea of making our budget lighter, our minds clearer, and able to focus on the things that matter to us. That's fantastic. Tara, thanks a ton for coming and talking about not being trashy. Don't Be Trashy is available everywhere now, right?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on a great project. We'll link to the blog. We'll link to the book on our show notes page at stackingbenjamins.com. Thanks for so much. Hanging out, not being trashy. That's all right.
Thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate it. It's been so much fun, and I'm excited to read your book too.
Thanks.